Let's go. The Lord's word makes it clear. Mhm. Genesis 14, the way spirits and angels talk. The way spirits and angels talk. The Lord's word makes it clear that many people used to talk with spirits. That many people used to talk with spirits and angels, and that they heard and saw much in the other world, but that heaven was later shut, so to speak. It was closed so tightly that today hardly anyone believes spirits and angels exist, let alone that alone anyone can talk with them. The most people's way of thinking speech with invisible beings whose existence they deny at heart is impossible. Once again, it was closed into the Lord's word makes it clear that many people used to talk with spirits and angels and that they heard and saw much in the other world, but that heaven was later shut, so to speak. It was closed so tightly that today hardly anyone believes spirits and angels exist, let alone that anyone can talk with them. The most people's way of thinking speech with invisible beings whose existence they deny at heart is impossible. In the Lord's divine mercy, however, the most people's way of thinking speech with invisible beings whose existence they deny at heart is impossible. Hardly anyone believes spirits and angels exist, let alone that anyone can talk with them. The most people's way of thinking speech with invisible beings whose existence they deny at heart is impossible. In the Lord's divine mercy, however, I have been granted the almost continuous opportunities for several years now to hold the conversations with them and to go among them as one of them. Let me report here, then, that I have had the privilege of learning about the way they talk to each other. When spirits talk to me, I heard them as clearly and distinctly as the people I speak with on earth. In fact, when I talk with spirits while surrounded by people, I noticed that I could hear the spirits just as audibly as the people so much.
Audibly. Audibly. Audibly.
Audibly.
Audibly.
Audibly, like loudly. As the people so much, so that the spirits sometimes had trouble believing they could not be heard by my companions. There was no difference whatever in the sound, but since spirit speech stimulates the ear's inner organs in a different way than conversation with other people does, it was inaudible to everyone but me, in whom whose organs in whom those organs were open by the Lord's divine mercy. Human speech enters through the ear along an external road by means of the air. The speech of spirit centers not by the ear, not by the ear. The speech of spirit centers not by the ear of or the air, but by an inner way. It reaches the same organs inside the head, in the brain, which is why it sounds the same. The following example made it clear to me how hard it is to convince people that spirits and angels exist, let alone that anyone can talk to them. There was a group there was a group of spirits I had known when they lived in the body who had been among the better educated. I have spoken with almost all those I had known during their physical lives, with some for several weeks and with some for a year, exactly as though they were living in their bodies. They were once led into the same patterns of thought they had when they lived in the world, an easy change to accomplish in the other life. The question was then suggested to them. Suggested to them. Do you believe anyone can talk to spirits? Suggested. You would have to be deluded to believe such a thing. Deluded.
Deluded.
It's like mislead, deceive, deluded. You would have to be deluded to believe such a thing, they said then in that condition and doggedly. Doggedly.
Doggedly.
Doggedly. It's like stubbornly, doggedly. And doggedly continued to assert their opinion. Assert, like declare, claim, defend. To assert their opinion, the experience showed how difficult it is to convince anyone that any speech between people and spirits is possible. The reason for the difficulty is that people do not believe in the existence of spirits, let alone in their own future arrival among spirits after death. Arrival. Arrival. Maybe like emergence. On future, let alone in their own future arrival among spirits after death. Maybe like appearance. This disbelief afterward shocked even the spirits themselves. Yet they were some of the better educated and had often spoken publicly about the next life and about heaven and angels. One would have assumed. 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 It's like imaginary. Assumed. One would have assumed that the idea was very familiar to them as a simple fact, especially from the word where it comes up frequently. One of the amazing things that happen in the other life is that when spirits talk to us humans, they do so in our native language. Uh, Sorry, what? In our native language. They speak it as easily and fluently as if they had been born in the same land and raised with the same language, whether they come from Europe or the Near East or some other part of the globe. So do those who lived thousands of years earlier, before the language even existed. In fact, spirits have no idea that the speech they use with us is not their own native tongue. They use our secondary languages too, but beyond this, they are not capable of producing one syllable or another language. Syllable. Mhm. It's like
Syllable.
sound. Mhm. Syllable. One syllable or of another language, unless the Lord gives it directly to them. Even babies who die before they have really learned any language at all talk this way. The reason, though, is that the language that spirits are familiar with is composed not of words but of thoughts. This language is common to all tongues. When spirits are present with a person on earth, their individual thoughts fall into words that person knows. The thoughts agree with and adapt to those words so perfectly that the spirits have no notion that the actual words are not their own. They fully believe they are speaking their own language, when it is really the person's language they are speaking. I have discussed these matters with spirits a number of times. As souls receive this gift as soon as they enter the other world, they can understand the speech of everyone in the whole family of nations, just as though they had been born in those nations, because they sense whatever a person is thinking. Not to mention other talents in which they excel excel even more dramatically. That is why it happens after physical death that cell
Excel.
excel. Excel maybe differs. You pass, take priority,
Surpass.
surpass, in which they excel even more dramatically. And that is why it happens after physical death that souls can converse and interact with everyone, no matter what the individual's region or language was. The words they use, that is, the words they stir up or retrieve, retrieve,
Retrieve.
retrieve like extract, or retrieve from our memory. The words they use, that is, the words they stir up or retrieve from our memory and presume, presume, presume. It's like
Presume.
believe, suppose, and presume to be their own are well chosen, clear, meaningful, distinctly and and unsighted. And unsighted, what is this?
Enunciated.
Enunciated. Enunciated. It's like proclaimed,
Enunciated.
declared, enunciated. Distinctly enunciated and relevant. Surprising to say, the spirits are smarter and faster at choosing words than we are ourselves. As a matter of fact, and this has been demonstrated to me, they grasp a word's various shades of meaning and apply them immediately without any forethought. What is forethought?
Forethought.
Forethought, like foresight, forethought, premeditation, forethought. The reason again is that the thought composing the language flow only into suitable words. The situation is almost the same as the times when we speak without thinking about the words and focus solely on the meaning of the words. Under those circumstances, our thought falls quickly and easily into phrasing that accords with our meaning. It is the inner meaning that produces the words, the same kind of inner meaning, but even more subtly, maybe
Subtly.
subtly. It's like finely, gradually, subtly, even more subtly nuanced and refined is what the language of spirits consists in, and by it we communicate with them, although we are unaware of it. Subtly nuanced.
Nuanced.
Nuanced. It's like subtlety. Verbal speech, as I said, verbal speech. Hmm. Verbal speech, as I said, is characteristic of people on Earth, and to be specific, of their physical memory. Speech composed of thoughts, however, is the speech of spirits, and to be specific, of inner memory, which is the memory of the spirit. We are not aware that we have the latter kind of memory because the memory of trivia, mm,
Trivia.
mm, trivia,
Minutiae.
minutiae, minutiae.
Minutiae.
Okay, the memory of trivia belonging to the material world, physical memory seems all important and overshadows the inner memory. The reality, though, is that without the inner memory characteristic of our spirit, we are completely incapable of thought. I have often used my inner memory in talking with spirits, which is to say that I have used their own language. That is, I have spoken by means of thought. The universality, the universality,
Universality.
universality, the universality of the language and its richness can be seen from the fact that each word contains a whole concept of tremendous reach. Concept of tremendous reach. What is tremendous reach? Tremendous.
Tremendous.
Like huge. As we know, it can take some time to lay out the thought behind a single word. Still more, the thought behind a single topic, and more yet, the thought behind a constellation of topics. Even if this can be brought together into a single, simple looking composite. These considerations give some clue to the kind of speech that spirits naturally use with each other and what type of speech it is that links us to spirits. Not only was I able to hear clearly what the spirits were saying to me, I could also tell just where they were at the time, above my head or below, on my right side or my left, at my ear, somewhere else near my body, or perhaps inside it, at such and such a distance, far or near. I could tell where they were because they spoke to me from the various places or locations they were in, which were determined by their position in the universal human, or in other words, by their state of mind. I was also allowed to perceive when they came and went, where they were going and for how long, whether they were many of few or few, and so on. From their speech, I could tell what they were like. Too, since the speech, like their aura, reveals clearly what their turn of mind and their character is, and what opinions and attitudes they hold as well. If they are deceitful, for instance, then when they talk, the general and specific type of their deceit can be detected in every word and thought, even if they are not lying at the moment. The same is true of all other vices and obsessions. What is vices? Other vices.
Vices.
I'd like defects, evils, other vices and obsessions. Obsessions.
Obsessions.
It's like fixed idea. Obsessions. These are so obvious that there is no need for lengthy investigation, and image of each is present in every word and thought. It is also possible to sense whether the thinking behind the words is closed or open minded, and what part comes from that individual, from other individuals, or from the Lord. It works almost the same as with the face with the faces of people on earth, in which we can usually recognize pretense, fraud, gladness, cheer, real or fake, true, friendship, shyness, or insanity. What is shyness? Shyness.
Shyness.
Shyness. Like embarrassment. Shyness. hmm Or insanity, even it is the person doesn't talk. Sometimes the same thing shows up in the tone of voice. Why not in the other life than where where perception is far more sensitive? In fact, before spirits speak, their thought alone reveals that they are about to say, since thought is communicated more quickly and readily than speech. In the next life, spirits converse with each other the same way we do on earth. Good spirits engage in the intimate, intimate conversation, intimate,
Intimate.
intimate. Mhm. Spirits engage in the intimate conversation of loving friends, as I have witnessed many times. They use their customary speech, which enables them to express more in a minute, express more in a minute. I think it's minute, it's about time. In a minute, than we could over the course of an hour. As noted, the language is universal, common to all tongues, because it uses ideas, the rudiments of all words, as its medium. They discuss things with such acumen,
Acumen.
acumen like discernment, acumen, and insight. We are seeing so many well constructed, persuasive lines of reasoning that if people knew about it, they would be dumb, dumbfounded, dumbfounded, dumbfounded.
dumbfounded,
Dumbfounded, like take, like stun,
stun,
shock. Dumbfounded. Spirits link opinion and feeling, which lends animation of their speech. Sometimes spirits employ representations as well and appeal to the eye and so to line experience. Take, for example, a discussion of shame and the question of whether it can exist apart from reverence. Employ.
employ,
It's like use, apply. Reverence people on earth cannot settle the matter without endless argument involving various proofs and examples. And even then the issue remains in doubt. Spirits, on the other hand, take one only a minute. They run in order, though, the various ways in which shame affects us, and then the ways in which reverence does, notice in points of agreement and disagreement. These they also observe in visual representations connected to their speech. From the evidence, they instantly arrive at a conclusion which rises spontaneously out of the harmony thus imposed on conflicting ideas. All other subjects are dealt with in the same way. Our souls take up this ability immediately, immediately after death. Good spirits like nothing better at the time than to teach uninformed newcomers. To teach uninformed, like not informed,
uninformed,
ignorant. To teach uninformed newcomers. The spirits themselves are unaware unless the Lord inspires them to reflect on it, that they speak such an exalted language among themselves, or that they enjoy such an outstanding gift. This way of speaking is natural for them, and by them, then it is ingrained. Their situation is like that of people who fix their minds on the meaning of a message and not on the words or form of expression. If they do not reflect on it, they sometimes do not even know what language is being used. Uh-huh. This then is the way spirits talk, but the speech of angelic spirits is even more universal and perfect, and the speech of angels still more so. There are three heavens, as noted before. Good spirits inhabit the first, angelic spirits the second, and angels the third. Perfection increases as it rises, so that superficial elements have almost the same relation to deeper ones as hearing, to illustrate by comparison, has to sight, and sight has to thought. What the ear cannot absorb from speech in an hour can be presented to the eye in a minute. A panorama of fields, panorama,
panorama,
panorama of fields, mansions, and cities, for instance. And what the eye takes many hours to observe, the thought can grasp in a minute. The speech of spirits bears the same ratio to that of angelic spirits, and the speech of angelic spirits to that of angels. Angelic spirits incorporate more clear, distinct concepts into one idea spoken or thought than spirits cover in several thousand. And angels outdo. What is outdo?
outdo,
Outdo. 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 It's like
surpass,
surpass. Outdo. Angelic spirits to the same degree. How must it be with the Lord, then the source of all the life in our feelings, thoughts, and speech, the one who alone is the message and the word? The speech of angelic spirits defies comprehension. You say just a few words about it, but only about the representative kind. It presents the actual subject matter in a representative form. This form is a remarkable one drawn from the objects of the senses, and the sweetest, most beautiful images vary it in countless ways. A continuous stream of emotions arising out of the happiness of mutual love flows in from the Lord through the next high heaven, making absolutely everything seem to come alive. Every single topic of discussion is exhibited. What is this?
Exhibited.
Exhibited, like exposed. Is exhibited in this way, in unbroken series of images. To describe just one representative image from any series intelligibly would be impossible. These are the influences that affect the thinking of good spirits, but the spirits are unaware of those influences except as a general something or other flowing in and affecting them. They lack a distinct perception of details that angelic spirits perceive quite clearly. hmm How much is it? It's a lot. Mhm. Perceive quite clearly. Mhm. Cool. Maybe someone wants to read next section. Maybe several sections.
I read
Yeah, go ahead.
there are many evil spirits who are not wholly superficial. They too, what is that? They too do not talk the way good spirits do, but likewise focus on the fundamental assumption behind an ideal. So they are more subtle than good spirits. Their numbers are large. They are completely separate from angelic spirits, whom they cannot even begin to approach. These evil, sub, subtle spirits also link their own ideals.
Sa- Satla. Maybe Satla.
Subtler.
It's without B.
Yeah, subtle.
Subtler.
Satla.
Subtler.
It's like gentle.
Yeah,
Mhm.
subtle. Okay.
These evil Satla spirits also link their own ideas. But
In yeah, in an
but
abstract way. What's that?
1 second.
Okay.
It's like any voice changer. Like I hear like maybe echo. I don't understand what is going on. Who is that? I think it's uh, who makes a noise like this. I don't understand. Maybe it's your microphone. Yeah,
Is it?
yeah. I think it's like any echo from your microphone I hear.
Oh, okay.
It's so
Okay.
loudly, you know.
Okay, let me fix it.
hmm hmm Flowing. hmm And these evil subtle spirits also link their own ideas in an abstract way to to objects of the senses and to subjects, but only to impure ones. Within those subjects and the subjects, they create for themselves a variety of images, uninformedly foul, in which they wrap their ideas. They resemble idiots. Their manner of speech was described to me and also represented as a heap of filthy garbage overflowing its container. The intellectual element of it was presented as the backside of a horse whose four quarters. What is four quarters? Four quarters.
Forequarters.
It's like front part.
Forequarters.
Four quarters could not be seen. In the world of spirits, a horse represents the intellect. The speech of angelic spirits, in contrast, was represented by a virgin tastefully clothed,
Tastefully.
tastefully, like elegantly, with taste,
Elegantly.
clothed, clothed,
Clothed.
clothed, like dressed, clothed, charmingly dressed, wearing a beautiful whitish. What is this beautiful whitish?
Whitish.
Whitish, like white color. Mhm. Beautiful whitish garment, neatly gathered to a kind of bodies. Kind of bodies.
Bodice.
Bodies. Like corset. Uh, neatly.
Neatly.
Quite carefully. Mm-hmm. Okay, who is next? Who wants to read? Next section and maybe next several sections. Angel's speech, however, defies description. It is far superior to the speech of spirits since it surpasses
Surpasses.
surpasses
Superior.
superior and surpasses are like the same thing. Far superior to the speech of spirits since it surpasses that of angelic spirits and is positively unintelligible to us in every way as long as we are living in the body. Spirits in the world of spirits cannot even form a notion of it for themselves, since it lies beyond the reach of their thoughts. The speech of the speech of angels does not involve mental images representing the subject matter, as with spirits and angels, spirits and angelic spirits. Instead, angels speak in terms of purpose and therefore of usefulness, which are the first and most important elements of any subject. Into this they weave their angelic thoughts, which take on endlessly new and different forms. A mutually loving goodness from the Lord touches each and every word with an inner delight and happiness, while the truth of a faith inspired by mutual love gives it beauty and tremendous appeal. Purpose and consequent use are like containers that are extraordinarily, extraordinarily, extraordinarily,
Extraordinarily.
extraordinarily, 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 extraordinarily,
Extraordinarily.
extraordinarily, 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 that are extraordinarily pliable. What is pliable?
Pliable.
Pliable like flexible. Pliable subject in the most pleasurable way to unending variation manifested in heavenly and spiritual forms we cannot possibly comprehend. The Lord holds angels in these thoughts because his kingdom is exclusively a kingdom of purpose and usefulness. As a result, the angels present with us pay no attention to anything but purpose and use, and they elicit nothing else from our thoughts. Elicit.
Illicit.
Elicit, like provoke, reveal. They elicit nothing else from our thoughts. Nothing else matters to them, whether it belongs to the mental or material world, because it is far beneath their sphere of interest. Who wants to read next, maybe? In the world of spirits, to the inner eye, on other words, angel's speech sometimes appears as the flickering of a light or of a radiant flame. The appearance differs depending on the state of emotion embodied in their words. It is only the most general emotional components of their speech arising out of countless individual feelings that are presented in this way.
Mary too.
Yeah, go ahead.
The speech of heavenly angels is different from that of spiritual angels, and it is even more im- impossible to describe or explain. Heavenly good as a motive is what they apply their thinking to, and consequently they have true happiness. Amazing to say, their speech is much fuller because they see it at the spring or source from which the living energy of thought and speech flows. Good spirits and angelic spirits have a way.
What is fuller? Fuller, much fuller,
Fuller.
And
Fuller.
much fuller. Like it's from full, like much complete,
so it's
like
adjective.
much fuller,
Mhm.
fuller, full and
Fuller.
fuller. Fuller like more full, more complete. Yeah, full, filled. Mhm. Their speech is much fuller, like more complete.
Okay. Of speaking all together in large numbers, particularly in circle choirs or
Choirs,
oh,
choirs,
choirs or
Qu- mhm.
Choirs.
Choirs. It's like singing.
mhm.
Choir, cho-
Yeah, it's
Choral
a group
singing.
cho-
people sing.
yeah, hmm choral singing.
Choral singing.
Qua- Choirs and choral
Choral singing.
choral singing. Choirs of and choirs and this word
Sorry, how to
chor-
pronounce it?
choruses, maybe choruses.
Choruses.
Choruses, yeah. Choruses and choirs like the same thing. Uh, Choirs is like
Okay, okay.
choral collective, collective, and choruses actually it's like the same thing. Choruses.
circle choirs or choruses. I
Mm-hmm.
will have more to say this letter. With the Lord's divine mercy, their choral speech I have heard quite often. It has a rhythmic, rhythmic flow to it. They do
Rhythmic,
not think,
yeah. It's
yeah,
about music, yeah.
Rhythmic.
Rhythmic. Mm-hmm.
yeah. They do not think at all about the words or concepts which their meaning pours into without effort. No words or concept that complicate the sense or distract the listener ever inject themselves. Neither any that have an artificial feel or that seem to them to display a vain, self-flattering elegance. Such faults would immediately disturb them. They never fixate on a word but consider only the meaning, the natural consequences of the meaning itself. The spirits end in unison, and usually a single unison. When the ending is more elaborate, intonation carries
Elaborate. What is this?
Elaborate.
Elaborate. It's like work, clarify, specify, develop, prepare. In the sense, engine is more elaborate. Maybe clarified. Intonation carries.
Yo,
them from
guys,
one
how you doing?
words. Yeah, hello.
Oh, hello.
What are
What?
you
What
doing?
are you?
So,
We are
solving
reading the book.
assignment?
You can see this book on the stream. And if
Yeah,
you want to read too, you can read next next section of verse in your turn.
this is some sort of assignment or something.
Sorry, I don't understand. What did you say?
This an assignment or something like that.
Author? Author? I asking who is the author of this book?
Oh, the
Sorry, I
author.
don't understand. Uh, Maybe accent is difficult for me.
Okay.
What kind of book is this?
It's Secrets of Heaven by Manuel Swedenborg. It's this book you can see, volume 2. Yeah, this chapter is about uh, how do angels talk.
That's angel
Like,
stuff.
yeah, it's about their speech. Like, yeah, talk. How can you communicate with angels? We should understand how they talk with each other and with us, in the sense. You see, he describes.
Okay.
It's like they talk by thoughts, like telepathy. Yeah, like this. I understand it in this way. Through
Okay.
tel.
Sound, sounds interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep reading.
Oh,
Who was reading?
okay, okay. These traits arise from the fact that the spirits think and talk in concert, so they have a smooth, flowing style of speech that result from their interconnections and their community and the anonymity of it. This was the style of ancient songs, and it's the style of the Psalms of David.
Go on.
Okay. Surprisingly, this manner of speech with a cadence. What is a
What is
cadence?
cadence? Cadence. Like manner of speech. Yeah? It's about manner of speech. Cadence.
Cadence.
Cadence. It's cadence.
Cadence.
It's like rate, rhythm, tact,
Intonation.
Modulation.
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 It's like many. It's like by using this kind of speech, angels can transmit more information than we can, because we are limited by our physical tongues, because we cannot say more than 200 words in 1 minute. But angels can transmit maybe 1 billion words in 1 minute.
I see.
And this. Uh-huh.
Okay. Surprisingly, this manner of speech, with a cadence that imitates the rhythm and music of song, is natural for spirits, is the way they talk among themselves, even though they are unaware of doing so. Souls take up the habit of speaking this way right after death. I too was introduced to it, and eventually became familiar to me. The reason spirits talk this way is that they speak in concert as a community. Although they usually do not realize they are doing so, this indicates clearly that all spirits are divided into communities, and that all things are therefore divided into something analogous, analogous to communities. Should I continue?
Yeah. You can read several, maybe several sections, if you can.
For more on the way spirits talk and how it varies, see the end of the present chapter.
Yeah, we finished this, and it's next Genesis 14. Yeah, maybe you can read this, and we can go to the explanation, and we can read one by one.
Chapter?
Genesis 14. And after it, we can read explanation of inner meaning of this chapter.
I say Genesis 14. It and
Mhm.
it happened in the days of Amphraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Eleazar, Chedorlaomer. I don't know this one.
Chedorl, Chedorla Omer. I like it's maybe it doesn't matter maybe.
Yeah, it's
Kidi
just
Lama.
Kider Lama, because this translator maybe doesn't know how to read this word, because it's not like English word, but maybe English speakers can read it. But I don't know. We can read like from rules like Chedorle Omer, like this maybe.
Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, that they made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zor. All the latter gathered together to the valley of Siddim, that is, the Salt Sea. For 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, and they struck the Rephaim in Ashteroth Karnaim, and the Zuzim in Ham, and the Ammon in Shepha Kiriathim, and the Horites on their mountain Seir.
Yeah, you can you can break your tongue by reading.
On their
Actually.
mountain Seir, all
Mhm.
the way to El Paran, which is up in the wilderness. And they turned back and came to En Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and struck every field of the Amalekites,
Kites.
and also
Amalekites maybe.
Amalekites,
Amalekites.
Amalekites. It's like nation.
every field of the Amalekites, and also the Amorite living in Hazazon Tamar, and the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zor, went out the marshal the battle with them in the valley of Siddim, with Tiralamer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goam, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. And the valley of Siddim was Ped of Tar, and the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah fled and fell there, and the rest fled into the mountain, and the four took all the resources of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their food, and went away. And they took Lot and his property, the son of Abram's brother, and went away. And he had been living in Sodom. And an escapee came and told Abram the Hebrew, and he was living in the oak groves of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Ascol, and brother of Aner, and they were men bound by a pact with Abram. And Abram heard that his brother had been captured, and he mustered his trainees, offspring of his household, 318 of them, and pursued all the way to Dan. And he divided his forces against the enemy by night, he and his servants, and struck them and pursued them all the way to Hobah, which is the left of Damascus. And he brought back all the property, and Lot his brother and his property he also brought back, and also the women and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after he returned from striking Chedorlaomer, and the kings who were with him, to the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley, and Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought up bread and wine, and he was a priest to God the highest.
It's stricken or striking? Stricken.
Striking.
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 You're right, like stricken, striking.
And he blessed him and said, a blessing on Abram from God the highest, possessor of the heavens and the earth, and a blessing on God the highest, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And Abram gave him a tenth of everything. And the king of Sodom said to Abram, give me the souls and the property, take for yourself. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted my hand to Jehovah, God the highest, possessor of the heavens and the earth, from the string of a shoe even to its strap, if I should take anything that is yours, to prevent you from saying, I have made Abram rich, excepting only what the young men have eaten, and the share of the man who went with me, Aner, Eskol, and Mamre, this shall take their share.
String of shoe. Yeah, string of shoe. Yeah,
Shoe.
shoe. Given to its trap. This trap.
Strap.
It's like belt. Trap. Okay. It's explanation. Summary. Okay. Who wants to read next? Maybe it's explanation.
Yan.
Go ahead.
Is this the Bible? Is it the Bible?
This was a chapter from the Bible, but it is explanation of this in spiritual sense because it's a book of Swedenborg. We read
That means I go to
Secrets of
heaven.
Heaven.
Am I going to heaven if I listen to this?
You're not
Yeah,
gonna.
because heaven is is within you.
Yeah.
It is within
Yeah.
you. It is about your mind, like state
Does
of
that
mind.
mean I'm God? Does that mean I'm God?
Yeah, because God is the word, and if we know the truth, we can be gods.
I can be God if I know the truth, but only then.
Yeah, because we should understand the meaning of God. Because who is God? God is the word. The Bible says God is a word, like a code, like a message
So what is
about
the meaning
what
of
is
God? I mean,
God.
words are always messages, but what is the meaning of God then, according to the Bible?
It's right information, because God, everything is about information, and God is information about what is good, what is right, what is uh, charity, what is mercy, what is perfect, because it's like the information about good things.
So
And
it's basically moral.
yeah, and moral too, because God, people use this term God to talk about big things, to talk what is above. It's like you can transmit more information. It's like figurative language, because God, I can say you God, and you can understand what I mean. But I can say a lot of words, but I can say only one word as God, like a model and prototype of everything what is best, what is good, what is correct, what is right, what is merciful, what is charity. Mm.
I always
Actually, it's
thought
about
God is like a entity with a consciousness. But you're telling me it's moral?
yeah, because we should understand God by His qualities, and God has a lot of names, and every name of God means any His quality. For example, Jesus is the name Jesus means Jehovah is our savior, and this is a quality of God as our savior, because we can understand God by understanding His qualities. Because it's for example, Jehovah Rapha. It's God is our healer. God is our doctor. Like it's another quality, and God has more than 100 names in the Bible, and every name of God means any His quality to understand. Because if you read the Bible, we can understand God better. Because we should understand what God means, like meaning
What
of
kind of
God.
Bible
Because
are you reading from? Like, you sound as if you're from Russia or something, or some Slavic country.
s- s- sorry, I
Is it
asking
like?
about writer of this book. It's Swedenborg. He
Oh,
lived
okay, yeah.
in he
I
lived in
thought you.
Sweden, and he lived in England, and it's very famous person. A lot of great people loved to read his books and learn from them. Actually, it's about spiritual meaning of the Bible, because Bible has a dual meaning, the literal meaning and spiritual meaning. And Swedenborg wrote only about spiritual meaning of the Bible.
I see. Well, Swedenborg.
Yeah. He has third highest IQ in history. His IQ is 206, because his books are very smart and wise. And if we will read smart and wise books, we can be more smart and wise too. It's about intelligence and intellect.
So when you read books, you're gonna be smart. Am I getting higher IQ?
Yeah, because our smartness and wisdom depend from information we receive. And if we will read smart and wise books, we will receive smart and wise information, and we can be more smart and wise from information, because we people are information beings. We are like computers. Our minds are like computers, and if we installate smart and perfect information into our minds, will be more perfect and smart and wise.
So after reading one of his books, I'm gonna have Windows 10. Is that what you're saying? Right now, I'm like Windows XP, and after that, I'm Windows 10.
Yeah, if you are able to understand and comprehend books of Emanuel Swedenborg, it means that your IQ is more than 100.
That's badass. Exactly what I want.
Sorry, I don't understand. Maybe we can read and you can understand what he means. You can understand his point of view, and you can say your opinion about his point of view. What do you agree
Alright.
with?
Alright,
Or
I'm gonna listen for a bit. Just continue.
Mhm.
Shall I read?
Yeah, who wants to read? Go ahead.
Okay. Summary. This chapter deals with the spiritual battles the Lord fought, which the wars depicted in the chapter represent and symbolize. The goodness and truth present in his outer self, which merely appeared to be good and true, were the weapons the Lord used during his youth in his combat against evil and falsity. The king's name in verse 1 symbolize apparent goodness and truth, while those named in verse 2 symbolize the evil and falsity he fought against. The latter were unclean. The evil and falsity that he battled did not show up at all until it erupted during his adolescence, as symbolized by the king's service to Ched Chedorlaumer. Is it Chedorlaumer? Is it?
Yeah, I think yeah. Let let it be so.
It's a little bit
Chedorlama.
difficult, yeah.
Chedorlama.
Okay. At the point the Lord defeated and thoroughly conquered every variety of false persuasion. The Rephaim, Zuzim, Emim, and Horites. He then did the
Horites.
same
I
Hirite,
think it's Horites. I heard this word.
Horites?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Horite.
let's see. Horites.
It's Horites, I think. Amorites, because
Horites.
you see,
Okay,
Amorites is like
alright.
nations. We call that nations like Ammonites, Horites, Perizzites, like this. Ites in the end.
Okay, thank you. He then did the same to the outright falsity and evil meant by the
Am-
Amal
Am- Amalekite. Amalekite.
Amalekite. Is it a name by the
It's
or a
it's a
place?
it's a name of it's a name of nation. Like
Okay.
Jews, like this. Amalekite. Amorite.
Okay. Amalekite and Amorite, and afterward to all other falsity and evil, meant by the kings mentioned in verse 8, 9, 10, and 11. Apparent truth and goodness, which are not intrinsically, is
Intrinsically. Maybe
intrinsically,
intrinsically.
intrinsic,
Intrinsically.
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 internally. Okay.
Intrinsically.
Internally.
Internally. True or good, sees control of his outer self, his rational self, Abram the Hebrew, perceiving this, rescued and freed it. Freed it. After these conflicts, evil and falsity surrendered. The Lord deepest self within his intermediate self, his divinity or divinity.
Divinity. It's like
Divinity.
divine if it is adjective, like adjective, yeah, it's divine, but it's adverbial, yeah, his divinity. No, it's noun. I think it's noun, divinity.
His divinity.
Divinity.
Yeah, it's noun. If
Okay.
it is noun, it's divinity, but if it is adjective, it's divine. The see in this word,
Divine.
Okay.
divine.
Thank you. His divinity within his rationality is Melchizedek. Melchizedek, is it?
Melchizedek. Yeah, Melchizedek.
And it blessed him after his struggles. The tenth part is the remnant or the states of goodness and truth remaining with him from those struggles. The evil and hellish spirits he had conquered begged for their lives. They did not care about anything else. The Lord, however, took nothing from them because their evil and falsity lent him no strength. Still, he did give good spirits and angels power over them, all of which is symbolized by the content of verses 21, 22, 23, 24. Inner meaning. The content of this chapter do not look as thought. No,
Though,
do not look at though they could represent anything. All the chapter talks about is the wars among a number of kings, Abram's rescue of Lot, and finally Melchizedek. So it reads as if it did not have a single heavenly secret buried inside. Still, in the inner meaning, these elements of the story, like all the others, conceal the deepest secrets possible, which follow on in an unbroken chain from those above and lead an unbroken chain to those below. The earlier parts spoke of the Lord and him and his education and of his outer self, which needed to unite with his inner self by means of knowledge, both secular and religious. As noted, though his outer self harbored or obstacles to the union as a result of his maternal heredity, what interfered had to be thrust out through combat in times of trial before his outer self could become one with his inner, or in other words, before his human quality.
interfered. What is it? Interfered.
Interfered.
Interfered. It's like intervene. Intervene.
Intervene.
Intervene, like invasion, yeah? Interfered. Before his human
What's
quality.
secular again? I forgot actually.
Secular.
Secular. Religious or secular and religious.
Secular is like not religious. Secular, for example, any country can be a religious country or secular country. Religious is like religious country, but secular like non-religious country.
Okay, okay.
Secular.
Secular like worldly.
Okay, got it.
His human quality.
Could become one with his divine. The present chapter therefore discusses those struggles, which the inner sense represents and symbolizes through the wars here described. Within the church, it is known that Melzi, Melchizedek,
Melchizedek.
Melchizedek represented the Lord, and as a result, that when the subject is Melchizedek, the inner sense speaks of the Lord. A further conclusion, logically, is that not only what is said of Melchizedek, but everything else too has a representative meaning. After all, not a syllable could have been written in the Word which did not come down from heaven, and in which angels consequently do not see heavenly dimensions. In the earliest times, too, wars represented many things. The people of those times called them Jehovah's wars, and sole purpose of the term was to symbolize the struggles of the church and of the people in the church, or in other words, to symbolize the spiritual trials of those people. Spiritual trials are nothing but our battles and wars against the evil in us. So they are fights against the devil's crew, which stirs up the evil and tries to destroy religion and religious people. The wars mentioned in the word have no other meaning, as is obvious from the consideration that the word cannot cannot treat of anything but the Lord, His kingdom, and the church. This is because it is divine rather than human, and accordingly has to do with heaven rather than the world. So the wars of the literal story can mean nothing else in an inner sense. You will be able to see this better below.
Thank you. Who wants to read next? Genesis 14, 1 and 2 verses. Okay, I'll read. And it happened in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elizar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, and that they made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemeba, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zor. It happened in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elazar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, symbolizes just so many different categories of apparent goodness and truth which are not good or true in and of themselves in the words outer self. Each of the kings and each of the nations symbolizes some variety of such goodness and truth. They made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Birsha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemeba, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar, symbolizes just so many categories of evil desire and distorted conviction that the Lord fought against. And it happened in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, of Arioch, king of Elazar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goyim, symbolizes just so many different categories of apparent goodness and truth which are not good or true in and of themselves in the Lord's outer self. This can be seen from the inner level symbolism of all these kings, as well as from what follows. The subject is the Lord's combat, combat like this. Combat is the Lord's combat with evil and falsity, and here it is about his first struggle, which took place in his adolescence and at the dawn of his adulthood. It was a struggle that he first faced and underwent after he had been trained in both secular and religious knowledge. This is why the verse says that it happened in the days of these kings. None of us can possibly fight evil and falsity until we know how to recognize them and consequently until we have been educated. We do not know what evil is, still less that falsity is, until we come into the capacities of intellect and judgment. And this is the reason we do not undergo spiritual trials until we reach adult age, the age of majority in our case, of adolescence in the Lord's. The very first weapons that any of us wield, what is this? Wild, maybe.
Wield.
Wield, like possess, own, wield.
Wield.
Operate. Wield. That any of us wield are the good impulses. Impulses. Impulses or impulses?
Impulses.
Impulses. Good impulses and true concepts we have acquired by learning about them. These we use as the basis and means for evaluating evil impulses and false concepts. When we first start to fight, we universally believe that the goodness and truth we wield are our own. We take credit for them and also for the power to resist. Such an attitude is acceptable because at that point we are incapable of knowing any better. Until we have been reborn, there is much that we cannot possibly see clearly enough to say that we know, acknowledge, and believe it. We do not see that nothing good or true comes from us, that everything good and true comes from the Lord, and that we have no power of our own to resist anything evil or false. We do not realize that evil spirits stir up the evil and falsity they flood us with. Still less do we realize that evil spirits put us in touch with hell, or that hell exerts as much pressure on us as the ocean does on each stone in a jetty far too much. Stone jetty. What's this?
Guys, what is that
Jetty.
book?
It's it's The Secrets of Heaven by Emanuel Swedenborg.
Oh my god, Russian words. Yes.
It's this book you can see.
My god. Crazy
Secrets of
cool
Heaven.
book. Спасибо,
Jetty.
братан. Просто тебе сразу ставлю лайк.
And jetty, we can see the picture of jetty, maybe to understand what it means. Jetty.
Swedenborg Emanuel.
Yeah, it's jetty.
О, пристань. Пристань. Что это вообще?
Each stone in a jetty far too much pressure for us ever to resist by our own strength. Still, since until we regenerate, we cannot help supposing the power is ours, we are allowed to think this way and so to be introduced into the battles of spiritual crisis.
What is
Later on,
spiritual
though,
crisis?
it's like maybe like just when you are distressed in temptations, like spiritual battle in your mind, because your mind is like the battlefield of spiritual warfare, like spiritual wars, because we fight against temptations. It's like crisis. For example, if you're afraid of
Да чё,
something,
просто сейчас в Google переводчик зайду и все.
spiritual crisis. Crisis, you know the game, video game, crisis.
Духовный кризис. Oh, I understood, my brother. Let's go. Let's continue.
If you want to read, you can read next verse in your turn after me.
I can read.
Okay, I'll finish maybe several. Yeah, you can read from the next section. Later on, though, we start to see the light. When we are at the stage of imagining that goodness and truth come from ourselves and that the strength to resist is ours, the goodness and truth with which we fight evil and falsity are neither good nor true, even though they seem to be so. An inflated sense of self lurks. Lurks. What is this?
Lux.
Lurks. Lurks, like hide. Lurks.
What's the difference between height and lurk?
Difference. It's
I see no
synonym
difference.
because I try to translate from synonyms and we can say
Oh
that
my god,
it's like the
it's
same
like
thing.
таиться, прятаться, скрываться, притаиться.
Lurks inside them, and we take credit for their victory. We pride ourselves on having conquered evil and falsity. Falsity, when it is the Lord alone who fights and wins. No one can see the truth of this but those reborn through times of tribulation. The Lord was introduced into fearsome struggles against evil and falsity in his early adolescence, and at the time he too could not imagine any differently. This was partly due to the divine plan that his human side be introduced to and united with his divine side through constant battles and victories. It was also due to the fact that the goodness and truth be used in the combat with evil and falsity belong to his outer self. So the goodness and truth were not entirely divine, which is why they are called apparent goodness and truth. For all these reasons, his divine side kept introducing his human side into the struggle in such a way that it would win by means of its own power. The secrets hidden in all this, however, are too manifold. What is this manifold?
Manifold.
Manifold. It's like many. Manifold. Manifold. Like various. Multiply. Plural. Manifold ever to describe. To put it briefly, the goodness and truth the Lord had that he used for weapons in his early battles were saturated with his mother's heredity, to the extent that his mother's heredity saturated them, they were not divine. But as he overcame evil and falsity, they were gradually purified and became divine. Mhm. Who wanted to read?
Me.
Next, you can read. Go ahead.
Where do I start?
No, section 100,
62.
1662. Yeah.
Okay, let me start. Each of the kings and each of the nations symbolized a variety of such goodness or truth as can be seen from their symbolism on an inner level in relation to the subject at hand. Each nation and each land has some de- de- definite,
Definite.
though
Definite.
though general symbolism in both a positive and a negative sense. This general symbolism, however, adapts to the subject at hand. Apparent goodness and apparent truth are symbolized by the names of the kings and the nations here, and much evidence exists to prove it. But it has been proved often enough before. Besides, so many names occur here was explaining the symbolism of each one individually would take too long. I'm done. Thank you very much. Ставьте 5. Ладно, 4.
Thank you. You are a good reader, you know.
Thank you, my brother. You know I am Alexander Klukrin.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for reading. Who is next? Who wants to read next?
Everybody is sleeping. It's boring.
Okay, I'll continue.
Okay, bro. Wait. You can ask someone if somebody is here. Катавасик тут вот, например, тоже пришел.
What?
Алло.
You say my nickname?
Братик, Катавасик, can you read 1663? Please.
1663? Yeah.
Yeah.
They made war. Which be what the fuck? King of Sodom, and which Brisha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of... Не, я не буду читать.
Do your best.
Что это такое?
I'm best.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Just believe.
I'm
Believe in
best in this.
yourself. Bro, believe in yourself. Ты же русский.
You
I'm
can
not
do
Russian,
it.
I'm Ukrainian.
You can do that.
King of Adamach and Shemen, king of Zemboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zora. Symbolizes just so many categories of evil desire and distorted conviction. The Lord forged against these two can be seen from the symbolism of the kings.
It's symbolism. It's not
Symbolism. It's symbolism, bro. It's not C, it's I. Symbolism.
Listen.
Symbolism.
What the fuck?
Symbolism.
It's
This
not.
is symbolism.
It's not English. Maybe my English difference. Yeah, I just
Symbolism. It's like symbol.
Yeah, no, symbol. I teach another English. Yeah, maybe. Читать дальше?
Go on, yeah.
Блять, это все читать?
Maybe you can if you're tired you can stop, but
Это точно английский,
okay.
это точно не какой-то там чиникунчуанский.
And nations mentioned there.
nations.
Okay.
Mentioned
her, and from that path all laws as well again except... Я такой читать не буду. Все, пока. Спасибо.
explaining. Thank you for reading.
Swedenborg, Emmanuel. Where are you from, my bro?
I don't say it. I don't represent myself. I don't like to talk about myself because
Bro, I
represent this book.
You know, I don't even know you. Don't be scared. Say where are you from?
I don't say it. Sorry, because
Okay,
I cannot say.
You're from Russia, yes, bro? Because you're scared to say it.
I don't say where I'm from because I don't like to talk. But I can say that I know Russian language, but I don't say about my location and nationality because
Your location is Ukrainian, Kazakhstan, Georgia, what else? Belarus. I don't know.
actually it doesn't matter because flesh counts for nothing. You know, it's you're asking about flesh.
Are you Ukrainian, my brother?
Do you know Ukrainian language?
To be honest, only some words.
Mm.
But I know some words. Yep, like my friend was saying me word полениться, like something I don't know why.
Mm. Okay,
Uh,
actually, it's a English-speaking channel, and
дякую,
we should talk about
дякую, дякую,
English
дякую,
topics.
дякую, 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 дякую.
Yeah, because it's
Це,
about
це,
topic. Because your question changes topic, because the topic of this channel today
okay,
is about
just,
this
just
book.
say where you're from. It
I
doesn't
I I,
matter.
I already answered you.
You
Because,
said it doesn't matter.
yeah, because I
Uh,
said I cannot answer
so it
on that
means you're
question.
from you. It means what you're from Ukraine.
Actually, it doesn't matter because
Okay,
you,
I
you
don't.
see, we just reading this book and
Okay,
talk about. We can talk about.
I just want to say I don't hate you. Yeah, my brother.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's continue reading. And we can discuss about this book, but not about us, but about our understanding of this book. It's better to talk about his point of view because we should understand his point of view, what he means. Again, explaining precisely which evil desire or distorted persuasion, yeah? What is persuasion, maybe? Persuasion, yeah? Like in British.
Persuasion.
Persuasion.
Persuasion,
Persuasion.
yeah. It's like belief, conviction,
Persuasion.
persuasion. Persuasion. Each of them symbolizes would take too long. The symbolism of Sodom and Gomorrah, of Admah and Zeboim, and of Zor has been touched on already. It is the most general or universal categories of evil and falsity that are symbolized on the inner level here, and they follow one another in order. The Lord underwent and suffered trials heavier than those of anyone else in the universe, the heaviest of all, but this is not well known from the word, which merely notes that he was in the wilderness for 40 days, where he was tested by the devil. The actual trials that he then experienced are not described in more than a few words, but those few cover everything. In Mark 1, 12, 13, for instance, it says that he was with the animals there, which symbolize the worst of the hellish mob. Subsequent details that the devil led him onto the fires of the temple and onto a tall mountain are nothing but images representing the terrible crisis he faced in the wilderness. There will be more on this below, the Lord in his divine mercy willing. The words here symbolize nothing else on an inner level than spiritual battles of trials, as stated above in the preliminaries. Preliminaries, what is this? Preliminaries, I think.
Preliminaries.
Preliminaries. Preliminaries, like when we do something before something to be ready for that. Mhm. Above in the preliminaries, so do other battles mentioned in the word, especially in the prophets. Human words have no importance on the inner planes of the word, since they are not spiritual or heavenly, and the word contains only what is spiritual and heavenly. The following passages and many others as well point to the symbolism of wars in the word as fights with the devil or to put it another way, with hell. In John, they are spirits of demons working signs of their intent to go out to the monarchs of the earth and of the whole inhabited world to gather them for the war on that great day of God Almighty. Anyone can see that no other type of war on the great day of God Almighty is meant in this verse. In the same author, the beast that comes up out of the abyss will make war. The abyss here is hell. In the same author, the dragon was enraged against the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her seed, those who were keeping God's commands and who possessed Jesus Christ's testimony. It was granted to the beast to make war with the godly. All these wars are the kinds of fights we face in times of trial. The wars of the southern and northern monarchs and so on in Daniel 10 and 11 have no other meaning. Neither do the things said of Michael in Daniel. Revelation, the other prophets also provide evidence that wars symbolize nothing else. In Ezekiel, for example, you have not gone up into the branches of built a wall for the house of Israel to stand fast in war on the day of Jehovah. This is addressed to the prophets in Isaiah. They will beat swords into what is this? Hose.
Hose.
Hose. Hose. Into hose. And the spears into what is this?
Scythes.
Scythe. Scythe. It's like to speed.
Scythes.
Scythes. A nation will not lift sword against nation, and they will not learn war anymore. It is obvious here that no other kind of war is meant, and is a result that the weapons mentioned in the word swords, spears, shields, and so on truly do mean the implements of such war. Implements. Implements, like utensils. Implements. In the same author, bring water to meet the thirsty. You who live in the land of Tema, approach the wanderers with bread for them, for they will wander in the face of swords, in the face of an outstretched sword and of a strong bow, and of the weight of war. Strong bow.
Strong.
Strong bow. Strong bow. In Jeremiah, shepherds and their flocks will come to the daughter of Zion. They will fix their tents near her all around. They will each graze their space, consecrate war against her. Rise and let us go up at noon. No other war is meant here because it is a war against the daughter of Zion, that is, against the church. In the same author, in what way have they not abandoned the city of praise, the city of my joy? Therefore, its youth will fall in its streets, and all the men of war will be cut off on the day. The city of praise and joy stands for attributes of the church. The men of war stand for people who put up a fight. In Hosea, I will strike a pact with them on the day the wild animal of the field, and with the bird in the heavens, and the creeping animal on the ground, and bow and sword, and bow. Like bow. It's a weapon.
Bow.
Bow. And bow and sword and war I will break off from the earth, and I will make them lie down securely. Again, just as war stands for personal struggles, the different weapons here stand for the implements of that spiritual struggle, which are broken when our obsessions and distorted thinking die down and we come into a time of peace and quiet. Obsessions.
Obsessions.
It's fixed idea. Obsessions. In David, observe the works of Jehovah who makes wastelands on the earth, stopping wars all the way to the end of the earth. The bow he breaks, and he lops off the spear. Chariots he burns with fire. Yeah, this is about how God is going to stop wars. He lops.
Lops.
Lops. It's like cut.
Lops.
Lops of the spear. Likewise, in the same author, in Salem's God's dwelling place, and his abode is Zion. What is abode? Is in Zion.
Abode.
Abode, like residence, dwelling place. There he broke the bows, flaming arrows, the shield, and the sword, and war. Because priests represent the Lord who does all the fighting for us. Their function is described as military service in Numbers. We do not see that Jehovah alone, the Lord, fights and overcomes the devil in us during our spiritual struggles, and yet it is the unchanging truth. Evil spirits cannot lift a finger against us without permission, and angels cannot ward. What is word? Cannot ward.
Ward.
Word. It's like reflect, avert,
Avert.
avert. Like remove. Cannot word of the. It's like word, but it's not word.
Ward.
It's reading like word, but the writing is different.
Ward.
Word. Angels cannot ward of the least threat except by the Lord's power. So the Lord alone is the one who carries the weight of every battle and wins. This was represented in various places by the words the children of Israel waged against.
Waged.
Waged. It's like conduct. Waged against the surrounding nations. The statement that the Lord is the only one who do this also appears in Moses. Jehovah your God walking in front of you. He will fight for you. In the same author, Jehovah your God is walking with you to fight for you with your enemies to save you. Joshua contains such statements as well as in all the wars there against the idolatrous residents of the land of Canaan, represented battles carried on with hell by the Lord and therefore by his church and people in his church. This idea accords with the following words in Isaiah 2. As the lion roars and the young lion over its prey, when an abundance of shepherds race up against it, by whose voice the lion is not dismayed, and by whose commotion it is not distressed, so Jehovah Sabaoth will commotion.
Commotion.
It's like turmoil, uproar. Commotion, it is not distressed, so Jehovah Sabaoth will come down to do battle on Zion's mountain and on its hill. So Jehovah the Lord is also called a man of war, as in Moses. Jehovah is the man of war. Jehovah is his name. In Isaiah, Jehovah will go forth as a hero, as a man of wars. He will rouse his zeal. He will shout even below. Over his enemies he will prevail. This is why many activities of war are also attributed to the Lord, like the shouting and bellowing here. Spirits and angels appear as men of war too when they are representing the Lord. In Joshua, for instance, Joshua raised his eyes and looked, and here now a man standing opposite him, and his sword was unsheathed, maybe unsheathed,
Unsheathed.
unsheathed. In his hand, he said to Joshua, I am the leader of Jehovah's army. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth. The scene appeared this way because it was representative. So Jacob's descendants called their wars Jehovah's wars. The ancient churches did the same, since they had books likewise named Jehovah's wars, as is evident in Moses. It is said in the book of Jehovah's words. These words were written about in the same way as the words mentioned in the current chapter, but they were purely symbolic of the church's battles. This method of writing was well known in ancient times because the people on that day were deeper and their thinking loftier. Next verse. Who wants to read? Next verse. Genesis 14. Go ahead.
Okay. Genesis 14:3. All the late, all the later gathered together to the valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. All the latter gathered together to the valley of Siddim means that they had unclean desires, that is the Salt Sea, symbolizes the rank falsities that resulted. They all gathered together to the valley of Siddim means that they had unclean desires. This can be seen from the symbolism of the valley of Siddim, portrayed below in verse 10 as pit after pit of tar, or a place full of tar pits, which symbolize foul and unclean desires. The meaning can also be seen from this that Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim symbolize evil cravings and distorted persuasions which are inherently unclean. Anyone in the church can see that they are unclean, and in the next world it is literally visible that they are so. Spirits who embrace such things love nothing better than to play out their lives in the midst of standing water, mud, and excrement. Their very nature carries such an environment with it. A filth like this warps perceptibly from them when they go near the realm of good spirits, especially when they feel like harassing those spirits, in other words, like gathering to attack them. Such evidence shows what the Valley of Siddim is. That is, the Salt Sea symbolizes the rank of falsities that resulted. This can be seen from the symbolism of the Salt Sea, which is essentially the same as that of the Siddim Valley, since it says the Valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. The reason the phrase is added despite having the same symbolism is that the soul symbolizes the false notions that gush out of our corrupt desires. Not one such desire exists that does not produce distortions. The driving energy of our appetites can be compared to a coal fire and falsity to the feeble light it yields. Just as fire cannot burn without glowing, our cravings cannot burn without producing falsity. Every craving is tied up to is tied up with some foul love, since what we love we crave. That is why it is called a craving. The craving itself is an arm of our love. Whatever promotes or agrees with that unsavory love is called falsity. This goes to show why the salt sea was added to the valley of Siddim here. 3. Because our appetites and false notions are what devastate us spiritually or strip us of all the living energy of love for what is good and all devotion to truth. Devastation is depicted in many places as salt barrens. In in Jeremiah, for example, those who those who use flesh as their arm will be like a naked shrub in the desert and will not see when something good comes, and they will settle in the parched places in the wilderness, a salty land and one that is not inhabited. In Ezekiel, it has its marshes and its swamps, and they are not being cured. They will be given over to salt. In David, Jehovah makes rivers into a desert and outlets of water into a dry gulch, a land of fruit into a salty land because of the wickedness of those living in it. In Zephaniah, Moab will be like Sodom and the
What is gulch? Dry gulch.
Gulch.
It's like go
Gorge.
gorge. Gulch, like mountain.
children of Ammon like Gomorrah, a place abandoned to nettle and a salt pit and a ruin forever. In Moses, sulfur there will be and salt there. The whole land will be what's that?
Conflagration.
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 It's a big fire, strong fire. Conflagration.
Okay.
For example, there are a lot of conflagrations in California. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Conflagration. It will not be sown and will not sprout, and no grass will come up in it, as in the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim. Sulfur and salt and the conflagration of the whole land stands for devastations of good impulses and true thoughts. Sulfur stands for devastation of anything good, salt for the devastation of anything true, since heat and salt destroy the land, and it's produced in the same way that ardent craving destroys what is good and distorted thinking destroys truth. As salt symbolized devastation, it was customary for people to sow with salt the cities they had destroyed, so that they could not be rebuilt. An example appears in Judges 9:45. Salt can also be taken in the opposite sense, um, as meaning a fertilizer and a
Ardent. What is ardent?
Ardent.
Ardent, like hot. Fury. Fury.
Fiery.
Fiery. Fiery. Ardent. It's about craving.
flavor. Genesis 14:4. For 12 years they served kid. What is I don't know how to pronounce that. And in the 13th year they rebelled. For 12 years they served. That means that evil and falsity did not show up in his youth. Rather, they were subservient to apparent goodness and truth. And in the 13th year, the rebel symbolizes the threshold of his trials in youth. For 12 years, they serve means that evil and falsity did not show up in his youth. Rather, they were subservient to apparent goodness and truth. This is established by the representation and symbolism of Shadow Lomer and of those who served him. Discussed above at verse 1, it can also be from the symbolism of the number 12. Shadow armor, along with those named above in verse 1, symbolizes apparent goodness and truth in the Lord. So he symbolizes the Lord's outer self in regard to apparent goodness and truth. The rest of the chapter makes it clear that Shadow armor here stands for all the kings mentioned in the one, as a group. So does the fact that he was the king of Elam, the symbolism of which was dealt with earlier, as being the faith that grows out of love and for others and out of charity. It symbolizes both truth and goodness here. Then, since faith and all that goes with faith consists entirely of truth, while charity and all that goes with charity consists of goodness. Here, however, it is the goodness of childhood which may appear good, but it is not, as long as inherited evil pollutes.
Pollutes.
Pollutes it. It is this product of a selfishness and materialism that are embedded in and and attached to it. Whatever results from self-love and materialism during childhood appears to be good. It is not good, but it should still be called good when it appears in children or adolescents who do not yet know what real goodness is. Ignorance excuses them, and innocence makes it seem good. The situation changes through when we learn to recognize right and wrong, the kind of goodness and truth that exists in the youth, not yet.
You said through, it's though.
Oh,
Yeah.
though, yeah. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Educated is symbolized by shed door armor. The fact that they served 12 years symbolizes the whole period of this type of goodness and truth. On an inner level, 12 symbolizes every aspect of the faith that belongs to charity, or the faith that grows out of charity, just as Elam did at Genesis. As long as this kind of goodness and truth is present in us, whether it is during our youth or any other or any other stage in our life, evil and falsity can achieve nothing. In other words, evil spirits do not then dare to try to do anything or to inflict any harm, and it's fairly clear from children, well-intentioned young people, and the simple-hearted, even if evil spirits, the worst of the devil's crew, are present with such a person, they cannot do anything. They are enslaved, which is what is symbolized here by the 12 years that they serve Shedderlam. The reason they are then enslaved and subservient is that the person has not yet acquired an aura of self-interest and falsity. Evil spirits and demons are not allowed to act on us unless they act on the traits we have chosen for ourselves by the way we live. They are forbidden to act on the traits that we have merely inherited. Until we acquire these auras, then evil spirits serve us. As soon as we do acquire them, on the other hand, evil spirits pour into us and attempt to control us. This is because they are then in their element, and they find a kind of pleasure in it, a pleasure that is the core of their life. Where the carcass is, there are the eagles. And in the 13th year, the rebel symbolizes the threshold of his trials in youth, as can be seen, from the symbolism of the 13th year of rebelling. The 13th year is right between the 12th and 14th. The symbolism of 12 has already been given, and the symbolism of 14 appears below. The point halfway between times free of trial and times full of trial is 13. The symbolism of rebelling can be seen from its use in relation to the evils or evil spirits present in us when they are enslaved and subservient, but then start to rise up and make trouble. The extent of rebellion by our evil or the evil spirits depends on the extent to which we justify any evil or falsity in ourselves. Despite our desire to dedicate ourselves to goodness and truth, to put it another way, their rebellion depends on the extent to which corrupt desires and false ideas worm their way into our good impulses and true ideas. Corrupt desires and False ideas are what evil spirits place their life in. Good impulses and true ideas are what angels put their life in. This gives rise to trouble and conflict. It arises in everyone who has a conscience, and it arose even more intensely in the Lord when he was young, since he had an innate perception of right and wrong. Those who have conscience sense the trouble and conflict as a dull ache, but those who have perception feel it as a sharp pain. As a sharp
H. What is this dull H?
Ache. Ache.
Ache.
Ache.
Is it ache? Like pain. It's ache. Like pain. Hurt. Sharp pain.
pain. And the deeper their perception, the sharper the pain. This suggests how much worse the Lord's trials were than ours, since he had interior and inmost perception.
You know, your voice became like a robot.
Alright, what?
Yeah, it's happened. Something with the microphone, maybe
Yeah.
Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Your reading is very good. And next verse.
Was my voice sounds like that the whole time, or
Yeah, you're a robot. you're a
most
robot.
of the time, like all the time?
No. Maybe 20 seconds.
Okay.
It ago it became like a robot. It was well. It was okay, but 20 seconds ago it became like a robot.
Okay.
Next, 1 second. Who is next? Who wants to read next? Maybe Genesis 14:5 verse.
I read.
Actually, you are like a robot too.
No, is that now like a robot?
Maybe I don't know what is going on. Yeah, your voice like a robot too. Maybe it's about my connection, but I don't sure. Okay,
Hello,
I think
everybody.
maybe it's my connection. Actually, yeah, this reading is over. I have to go and goodbye. See you.
Bye. See you. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. What's up? It's my turn.
The reading is over.